The beginning of everything was at 5:45 in the morning before the catastrophe, with the temperature in Guangzhou at 6 degrees. I was on the 6th floor balcony photographing the sunrise rocks with a 600 fixed focus lens, inexplicably stopping 3 kilometers away. The strange flickering of light and shadow alerted me, and at the moment of clear focus, a high-definition massacre scene hit my eyes. The dark red liquid splattering from biting made my heart skip a beat. I enlarged the photo 400 times and saw the distorted face of the biter clearly. My hands trembled as I searched for Guangzhou Hospital emergency biting incident. The newly appeared video entry was quickly 404, and trending searches were replaced by entertainment news. I knew too well the authorities were suppressing the heat. Something big was coming. I have less than 100,000 in savings, and I made a crazy decision to sell off my treasured digital equipment, even if it means taking a loss, just to get cash on hand. I only kept the new 5090 graphics card because even in the apocalypse, I want to play games. Then I borrowed from every loan app I could find, and the balance finally settled at 394,000. Survival is a math problem, and I need to turn money into survival capital. The first call was to the building materials market, offering a 50% markup to order a glass vault door, a 10mm solid steel glass vault door, to be installed at my doorstep by 8 o'clock the next morning, and to install steel bars in the stairwell from the 5th to the 6th floor. Seeing the balance decrease by 52,000, I felt incredibly secure. As I hung up the phone, 3 ambulances downstairs drove against traffic through the intersection, red and blue flashing lights sweeping across my face. I know this is the first trumpet of the apocalypse. The survival countdown has officially begun. Changzhou's morning rush hour. The main roads are packed with traffic, and 3 ambulances weave crazily through the flow, while pedestrians only glance briefly. This collective indifference is more terrifying than the virus. A special alert on my phone crushed my last bit of luck. I know logistics will soon collapse, so I must race against time to stock up. 20 kilograms each of fresh beef shank and pork belly. I need to cure them into salted meat before the power goes out. High-calorie food. I didn't look at the prices, just grabbed everything like crazy. Watching my bank balance plummet, I only felt exhilarated. The delivery was absurdly slow, and the rider called, coughing mixed with sweat, confirming the pandemic had spread to the logistics side. I tipped him 301. Turning back, I saw the trending topic about biting had disappeared, sending a chill down my spine. At 9:15, the grain and oil wholesale market was in chaos, with people scrambling for bulk rice. I directly put down 20,000 in cash to order 2 tons of rice, accounting for a 20% spoilage loss, enough for me to eat for 1,500 days. I had already rented the neighboring unit 602. Taking advantage of the old and small space, it was more than enough to store 10 tons of supplies, 200 boxes of luncheon meat, 4,800 cans of vegetable cans. Even at 25 yuan per can, I didn't hesitate. I labeled all the supply boxes as precision photography equipment. On the eve of the apocalypse, lies are more useful than bulletproof vests. 3,600 liters of mineral water piled up like a small mountain, enough for cooking, washing, and treating wounds. Used sparingly, it will last me several years. I only paid a 30% deposit for these supplies, leaving the rest to fate. Leaving the grain and oil market, I headed straight to the wholesale market. Prices had already skyrocketed, but I had a goal. I used a forklift to take away 2 freezers for 500 people and bought 300 kilograms of frozen meat for preservation. The generator is noisy, so I won't turn it on unless absolutely necessary. This meat is my source of joy in the early days before the apocalypse. Next, I stocked up on hard currency for the apocalypse, high-proof liquor and cigarettes, all good stuff. Also, 50 kilograms of sugar and salt and 50 cases of cola. My happy water is also my last sugar reserve. Very important. 400 kilograms of bentonite cat litter, essential when water is cut off to wrap waste and inhibit bacterial growth. 100 packs of toilet paper, more precious than gold. 20 boxes of monthly sanitary pads, dozens of boxes of wet toilet paper, hemostatic materials, sweat-absorbing insoles, all have wide uses. The security and building materials market is quiet, just as I like it. 5 large barrels of high-temperature grease, 10 rolls of razor wire, wrapped around the outer walls and air conditioning units will be a nightmare for climbers. No one will dare to intrude. 2 sets of high-rise descent devices, 10 gas masks, and several hundred dry powder fire extinguishers as backup. This is my last resort and confidence. After all, there is no fortress that never falls. These are all my cards for survival. At 10 o'clock sharp, I arrived at an outdoor store in Guangzhou. The 3 outdoor power sources I originally had at home were far from enough, so I got 6 more 2 kilowatt-hour units, making an 18 kilowatt-hour independent power matrix. Paired with 8 400-watt foldable solar panels, as long as there is sun, my surveillance, computer, and drones can keep running continuously. The 87,000 spent was worth it. This is the last spark of modern civilization left to me. I paid for the full set of individual tactical gear without hesitation. In the unknown dark future, these are essential for survival. Leaving the outdoor store, I drove into a dark dead-end alley where the pharmaceutical representative was already waiting for me. This time, I didn't transfer money but took out a 20-gram gold bar. He bit it to confirm it was real before handing me the black bee box. Inside the box are cephalosporins, amoxicillin, quinolone drugs, various prescription medications, antibiotics, and about 100 bottles of multivitamins. In an apocalyptic scenario where fresh vegetables are unavailable, multivitamins are the only antidote to prevent scurvy. I know very well that in the end times, antibiotics are the real gold, while gold is temporarily just gold. At 12:16 in the afternoon, the air raid siren sounded without warning, and adrenaline surged through my body. 2 trucks were already parked downstairs as planned. They are the barricades. They are roadblocks, but also the last bit of time I managed to seize. I don't need exquisite skills, just their brute force. Money is the strongest stimulant at this moment, and I have them smash into the wall of apartment 602 next door. I want to break through 2 apartments and merge them into one. A regular red brick wall can't hold a heavy vault door, so I used number 10 channel steel, locked it tightly twice with M20 bolts, embedding the vault door in an independent steel frame. This is the limit of what an ordinary person like me can achieve. The interior wall has a top-mounted mesh, and I stack vacuum-packed rice bricks tightly against the wall, forming a 50-centimeter layer. This not only absorbs external impact energy, but also serves as a backup food supply, providing dual protection and the ultimate in defense and reserve. Hundreds of cardboard boxes, labeled with precision instrument tags, contain food, medical supplies, and fuel. In this world on the brink of collapse, the truth is far more dangerous than lies. My steel fortress is gradually taking shape, and the transition from survivor to master of the fortress is just a thought away. At 4:30 in the afternoon, the workers' movements gradually slowed down. A barely noticeable tremor suddenly came from the ground in Kangzhou, followed by a muffled sound as if something was forcibly buried. My phone popped up a video from a local group showing the emergency hall of Kangzhou Hospital, where a security guard with a face full of blood was biting a nurse like a beast. But the video was deleted just a few seconds after it started playing. The official cover-up can no longer conceal the out-of-control situation. I suppressed my pounding heart, watching the workers transport the last batch of supplies. At this moment, 602 was no longer an ordinary apartment, but a giant safe filled with survival supplies. The bricklayers laid the last few red bricks, and once the wall dried, 602 would completely disappear from the floor plan of this building, unknown to anyone. The sound of sirens outside merged into one, echoing over Kangzhou. I know that my safe zone is only this small space, and soon outside the door, there will only be firm steps left. The moment I locked the crash safe door, I collapsed to the ground. It wasn't just physical exhaustion, but a retaliatory fatigue after letting down all my defenses. It wasn't until I turned on the surveillance screen that I truly saw the state of Kangzhou. The state machinery was still making its final firepower suppression, but the intelligence from the dark web and the images on the surveillance were telling me that the chaos was coming faster than I had anticipated. The street below is filled with screams, cries, and crashes as the once bustling Changzhou is turning into a dead city. I stare at the core data on the computer, my fingers unconsciously tapping the desk. From the moment I locked the door, the world was divided into 2 halves for me. Inside the door is my personal Noah's Ark. Outside is hell on earth. This survival game has officially begun. I try to tell myself that I am a calm hunter, but the low-frequency rumble from the floor completely shattered my self-hypnosis. This is not an earthquake. It is the violent convulsion before Kangzhou's death. I lifted a corner of the blackout curtain, and the night sky had turned blood red. At that moment, all the cheap confidence I had built shattered completely. An hour ago, I thought this was just a game where survival meant victory, but when the screams echoed throughout the city, I realized how arrogant and ridiculous I was. The cold light of the studio was my only sense of security, as the live stream windows turned into static one by one. The 50,000 people per square kilometer in Kangzhou became the most efficient meat grinder. In the surveillance, an ordinary security door was smashed like paper, the impact force defying the physical limits of human muscles. A pool of dark red blood seeped through the floor cracks, the smell of rust seemingly penetrating the screen and hitting my nostrils. I began to doubt whether this welded steel door could really hold. At midnight, on the narrow 2-lane road of the old district in Kangzhou, the Modi army's armored convoy was forcibly advancing. This was a peacekeeping force stationed in this special zone, well-equipped and heavily armed. But in the maze of the old district, the heavy armored vehicles became elephants trapped in the alleyways with restricted shooting and zero mobility, not moving fortresses but moving iron coffins. Through a telephoto lens, I saw the machine gunner hesitated due to strict engagement rules, mistaking a fleeing civilian for an ordinary person. At the moment of shouting to retreat, that pink figure crashed in like a cannonball, and the defense line was instantly torn open. Hot weapons can crush ordinary carbon-based life forms, but in the face of the absolute numbers, speed, and painlessness of zombies, guns are nothing more than fire pokers. Looking at the footage on the monitor, cold sweat seeped from my palms, and for the first time, I felt despair deep in my bones. At 15 minutes past midnight, several magnesium flash bombs soared into the night sky of Kangzhou with a scream. The peacekeeping forces intended to intimidate the zombies, but they didn't realize this was the most fatal mistake. The zombies exposed to the strong light did not retreat in fear. Instead, they became extremely agitated. Tens of thousands of throats roared simultaneously, causing a low-frequency resonance. The walls of this old, shabby building were trembling slightly. It turned out that the light was not a deterrent to them, but an allure. I took the risk of deploying a drone, and the footage it sent back completely overturned my understanding. From 200 meters high, the zombie horde is no longer a biological entity, but a fluid of blood. The black horde surges toward the armored vehicles like a flood. The terrain of the old city of Kangzhou leaves the armored vehicles with no room to maneuver, and they are instantly submerged. The Gatling gun's fire wildly sweeps, but the bullets seem to hit a quagmire. Zombies fell, and those behind stepped on the flesh and continued to climb. In the drone's footage, an armored vehicle attempted to force its way through, the engine roaring, wheels spinning, but it was completely stuck in the thick flesh around it. A Black Hawk helicopter was flying low for some reason, and this became its final act. Just as it lowered its altitude, several zombies defied physics and jumped. Immediately afterward, dozens to hundreds of zombies clung on one after another. The helicopter tried to lift off, its engine roaring wildly, but the weight hanging on it was too great, and it was forcibly pulled down by countless hands. An orange fireball exploded in the night sky over Kangzhou, and the drone signal was instantly lost. My heart was pounding uncontrollably. Even the heavy firepower of the peacekeeping forces was defeated. What difference does this compound bow in my hand make compared to a fire poker? An unprecedented sense of powerlessness overwhelmed me like a tide. At 4 in the morning, a deathly silence once again enveloped the Kangzhou Special Zone. But this silence was more terrifying than chaos. On my surveillance screen, the light suddenly turned on in the window of the 4th floor across the street. That was the Zhang family. In the pitch-black dead city, this light shone like a suicidal torch. I know all too well that the #1 taboo for survival in the apocalypse is exposing oneself in the dark forest. The horde of corpses downstairs instantly rushed towards that building, and the gaze of hundreds of dead eyes made my scalp tingle. A few seconds later, the light went out and a pool of black blood slowly flowed across the window glass. The Zhang family not only lost their lives, but also brought disaster into this building. I switched back to the hallway surveillance. In the green night vision image, outside the silent gate, countless hands reach through the bars, frantically clawing. I know the threat is no longer elsewhere. They are right outside my door. At 6 in the morning, the first ray of sunlight cuts through the streets of Kangzhou like a knife. The sunlight hits the zombies, and they instantly emit white smoke. Ultraviolet light is their deadly nemesis. To avoid the burning, countless zombies squeeze into the underground garage and crawl into the sewers. The red brick wall of the unit door where I am has become the only deep hiding place nearby. I immediately turned on the external monitor and watched as the zombies rushed into the building, trampling over each other, filling every gap and even crawling into the ventilation ducts. The floor beneath my feet vibrated intensely. At this moment, I realized I had walked into the lion's den. This building had become a massive nest of zombies. The signal bars completely dropped to 0, turning directly into a grey cross. The information chain broke, and I became an isolated island of information in the apocalypse. Inside the deathly, silent fortress, a chill swept over me, and my intuition told me something was wrong. As I approached the observation port, I was startled to find a zombie in a suit. It ignored the deadly ultraviolet rays, allowing its skin to burn and smoke. Its gray-white pupils locked onto the observation port, nostrils flaring intensely. Using its sense of smell, it precisely pinpointed my location. The survival game had escalated, and the chamber hunt had begun. I pressed tightly against the wall, not daring to breathe loudly. On the 3rd morning of the apocalypse, the air in Kangzhou was terrifyingly clear. I was huddled in the fortress eating snacks, a scene of material excess that seemed out of place in this hell. In the distance, rhythmic industrial noise could be heard, not the chaotic sound of gunfire. The Prussian blue sky was cloudless, beautiful like a vicious irony. Through a telephoto lens, I saw the Kangzhou building turned into a colorful tombstone. Survivors a few kilometers away were desperately waving red flags. The army did not bomb the city center because the wall of size was erected here. Helicopters flew by with long-range loudspeakers, the noise becoming a magic flute. Zombies poured out from the corners, chasing after the helicopter. The helicopter, like a shepherd dog, leads them to the predetermined slaughterhouse. The roar of heavy artillery came from the direction of the coastline, clearing the zombie horde in batches. The army's shepherd dog plan is efficient yet extremely ruthless, which means that we in the residential area are excluded from the clearing zone. As civilization and order return, I am completely abandoned in a desperate situation. At 11:30 in the morning, the ceiling light flickered twice and then went out completely. The civilian power supply system in Kangzhou has officially collapsed. I sat motionless in the chair, already prepared. A few seconds later, the power unit under the table emitted a low, long beep. The backup power started, with 98% remaining. In this completely dark world, electricity is the greatest privilege. Seeing the green indicator light on the power strip, I felt slightly relieved. But just then, the phone screen suddenly lit up, and the message box of the Building 2 Owners Group exploded. Among the 99 unread messages, there wasn't a single photo of a zombie transformation, only hysterical probing. Some people were crying about the water and power outage. Some were offering high prices for medicine, and Uncle Wang from apartment 402 even directly tagged me, asking me to share my supplies. Looking at these words, I could only find it laughable. Silence was my only response. The messages in the owners group kept flooding in. Some people started to morally blackmail, saying I was selfish for stockpiling supplies in advance and that neighbors should help each other. Some even speculated where I hid my supplies, their words full of greed. I remained silent throughout, not responding with a single word. These people haven't reached the point of extreme hunger. Their so-called survival instinct is just the urge to exploit the wealthy. In the apocalypse, any form of communication is exposure, any shin, and any softness is being irresponsible to oneself. I turned off group chat notifications, set my phone to silent, and refocused on the surveillance. The scratching sound in the hallway continued, and that suit-wearing zombie was still guarding downstairs. I know that only a steel fortress and ample supplies are the most reliable. The vanity of human nature is more terrifying than zombies. At 5:30 in the afternoon, the city fell into eternal night, and the entire building could collapse at any moment. The zombie in the suit is still scratching tirelessly outside the vault door. Outside are the watchful mutant hunters. Inside are the irrational neighborhood thugs. I put on tactical gloves and picked up the compound bow. This is not a simple shooting practice, but a silent operation. On the 6th floor platform, the suited zombie is just 2 meters away. Even a cough would awaken the zombies in the entire building. Muscle memory allows me to instantly complete the draw, pulley, and flip. The bowstring tightens, and the single-wheel arrowhead precisely pierces his left chest, penetrating the heart, yet he only steps back half a step, still standing. I don't hesitate. Quickly drawing the third arrow, the red dot sight locks onto his brow. A damp thud, the sharp arrow pierced through the skull. He collapsed to the ground like a machine with its power cut, silent. This was my first hunt. Calmness is my only chance of survival in the apocalypse. Looking at the fallen suit-wearing zombie, I quickly retrieved my bow and arrow. With a bang, the vault door locked again, isolating myself from that crazy world. I leaned against the door, panting heavily, the tension of the first kill not yet gone, but the scene on the monitor made my heart sink instantly. The sound of dragging footsteps came from the stairwell, and a few new zombies appeared. At first glance, they looked like neighbors returning late from work, but they instantly surrounded the body of the suit-wearing zombie, completely blocking the view with their backs to the camera. They were feeding, and I realized I had made a fatal mistake. I thought I was cleaning house, but I was actually serving a meal to other zombies. The number of zombies in this building will only increase. A few days have passed, and the body of the suit-wearing zombie is long gone, leaving only a patch of dark brown bloodstain, dried and cracked, like a cursed totem imprinted on the 6th floor platform. Even flies are too lazy to stop there. The pale sky is oppressively suffocating. A typhoon is about to arrive, and the pale grey clouds press heavily on the city's ruins. This dead city is about to experience its first blood rain. The entire city is decaying, but inside my fortress, separated by just a wall, it's a different scene. Blue butane flames flicker in the dark, and the luncheon meat in the cast iron pot is bubbling. In this moment, junk food from peaceful times is my only antidote to maintain sanity. In the entire city, only this pot of hot soup is alive. While I was enjoying this moment of warmth, a strange sound crept into my ears. Some unknown cleaner had avoided all surveillance. Before the storm arrived, a new hunting crisis was approaching. I put down the bowl and chopsticks and walked into the studio. That strange sound was someone trying to break into my fortress. On the surveillance, hundreds of zombies were crowded together like sardines in the first-floor corridor, avoiding the midday ultraviolet rays, hanging their heads motionlessly, entering a deep slumber. But beneath this deathly stillness, there was a repressed destructive force ready to erupt at any moment. And on the fifth-floor surveillance, 3 sneaky figures appeared outside my fence gate. They were the neighbors from this building. To avoid alerting the zombies downstairs, they wrapped their feet in thick cotton cloth, moving cautiously like thieves. The slightly chubby man was dripping a smoking liquid onto my vault door. It was strong acid, trying to dissolve the lock core. The tall, thin one held a hacksaw, pulling the blade during the howling wind, stopping when the wind stopped, attempting to silently saw through my steel defense. The neighbors' greed and scheming chilled me more than the zombies. On the eve of the typhoon, I switched to the external wall surveillance and was startled to find an uninvited guest. A man, like a legless beetle, was clinging tightly to the rainwater pipe on the red brick wall. At a height of over 10 meters, the wind was so strong that the camera was shaking. He was teetering, his eyes full of greed, emitting an extremely rancid smell, staring intently at my air conditioner bracket. The next second, he acted decisively, but his foot slipped, and he fell heavily to the ground below like a broken plank, making a dull thud. This noise of the fall became his ticket to hell. The zombies in deep sleep downstairs were awakened by the loud noise, and countless hungry roars instantly erupted in the hallway. The zombies downstairs were awakened and started climbing up the stairwell, causing each floor to tremble. The 3 neighbors on the 5th floor panicked instantly, wanting to run, yet also wanting to knock on my vault door for help, hesitating at the brink of life and death. I wasn't angry. I even felt like laughing a bit. I didn't reach for the bow and arrow, but instead gently pressed that button. The piercing high-frequency alarm instantly blared in the hallway, serving as a dinner call for the zombies and the final straw that broke the camel's back. The neighbors scrambled back to their homes, slamming the door shut, but the zombies in the hallway were completely drawn by the alarm sound, frantically pounding on their doors, watching on the screen. The empty corridor and the fallen steel bars on the ground. I released my fingers. Sometimes noise is more effective than a sharp sword. The high-pitched alarm was completely drowned out by the rolling thunder. The typhoon in Kangzhou finally arrived. The wind howled and the rain poured down. This is the baptism of this dead city, and also my best cleaner. I took out several thick black garbage bags, filled with accumulated cat litter and filth from the past few days. Seizing the moment when lightning tore through the sky, I opened the small window of the vault door and hurled them into the abyss of the corridor. The torrential rain instantly swallowed everything, washing away the bloodstains and filth in the corridor, and also taking away part of the stench of corpses. I turned the red valve of the rainwater collection system, and the icy rainwater cascaded down from above, washing over my skin, taking away a week's worth of dust and sweat, and also removing the shadow of death that had clouded my eyes. I changed into dry, quick-drying clothes and sank into the soft beige sofa, holding a cup of hot tea with steam rising. Outside the window, there is the violent wind and rain, the howling zombies, while inside the door, there is warm light, steaming hot tea, and ample supplies. This contrast of heaven inside the walls and hell outside gives me an almost luxurious sense of security, making it addictive, even creating the illusion that as long as I don't go out, disaster will never come in. I listen to the sound of wind and rain outside the window and the white noise of the fresh air machine, closing my eyes to enjoy this moment of peace. But just then, a piercing alarm comes from the equipment cabinet, and the screen of the solar controller lights up with a glaring red light. I rushed into the equipment cabinet and saw the solar controller's screen showing an input power of 0, battery voltage at 118 volts, with the numbers flashing wildly, and the lights inside suddenly dimmed. The typhoon brought a long rainy season with no sunlight, the solar panels can't charge, and the backup power is depleting at a visibly fast rate. This rain has lasted for a whole week. The sky over Kangzhou remains gloomy, without a trace of light, and my vision is reduced to just a few square meters of darkness before me. To isolate the increasingly intense stench of corpses outside, I have actually turned this fortress into an airtight coffin with my own hands. The clock has ticked countless times, and I have been lying in this darkness for 7 days. Despair, it slowly devours me. 7 days without electricity, my fortress has turned into a cold prison. Even wrapped in the last down jacket, the chill still seeps through my bones. The fresh air system completely shut down, and the air was unbearably stale. My hand involuntarily reached for the gas stove switch, even if just to have a sip of hot soup, but I didn't dare. In the enclosed space, either carbon monoxide would take me away, or the aroma of luncheon meat would attract zombies and neighbors. I withdrew my hand, picked up a can of cold luncheon meat, its surface covered with a thick layer of lard. The spoon felt like digging into a candle, the cold grease sticking to the roof of my mouth, and the fishy, greasy taste made me want to vomit. I buried myself back into the darkness, in this box without electricity, without light, without hope, slowly draining my will. Just as my will was about to be completely worn down, a sharp, laser-like ray of sunlight suddenly pierced through this cold coffin. The dust, silent for a week, danced wildly in the beam of light. Then, a clear electronic beep sounded, the heartbeat of the solar controller and the revival of this fortress. The MPPT screen's green light flashed wildly, and the input power surged to 860 watts. The sunlight finally broke through the rain and shone into the dead city of Kangzhou. I had no time to cheer. The first thing I did was rush to the fresh air system and press the start button. With a hum, the fan blades turned, and the cyanamide and hydrogen sulfide from the bodies soaked by the flood downstairs were filtered layer by layer by the industrial-grade activated carbon filter. The stagnant air of a week finally began to flow, and my fortress came back to life. After confirming the ventilation was restored, I immediately connected the water and electricity. The solar power input of 860 watts means there is sufficient electricity. The 600-watt folding kettle started boiling water. I can not only drink hot water, but also have extra power. The drone, camera, and hand warmers, all devices are recharging. The green light on the power strip lit up, and the sense of control was instantly maximized. After a moment, I threw myself back onto the sofa, with a heated electric blanket over my legs and holding a steaming hot coffee in my hands. The hot steam hit my face, mixed with a long mist aroma of roasted coffee. The white noise from the fan was more pleasant than any symphony. On this hellish morning, a few hundred watts of electricity allowed me to return to being a civilized person, regaining control over my survival. The warmth of the coffee hadn't dissipated yet when the dark brown liquid in the cup suddenly rippled violently, and the soundproofing foam on the walls began to resonate. This wasn't thunder, it was the industrial roar, more oppressive than a natural disaster. I put down the cup, grabbed the 600mm telephoto lens, and through the electronic viewfinder, I saw a grey-black C-295 transport plane roaring past, skimming the cityscape of Kangzhou. The belly of the plane opened, and several wooden crates with parachutes were dropped. Bright orange parachutes blossomed in the air, and the supply boxes marked with the letters AID wobbled as they floated toward the ground. This scene looked like humanitarian aid, but I knew in my heart it was more like a carefully orchestrated political performance. In this abandoned dead city, the appearance of supply boxes might not be hope, but more likely a new battle. The warmth of the coffee hasn't dissipated yet, and the dark brown liquid in the cup suddenly ripples violently while the soundproofing foam on the wall begins to resonate. This is not thunder. It is the industrial roar, more oppressive than a natural disaster. I put down the cup, grabbed a 600mm telephoto lens, and through the electronic viewfinder, saw a grey-black C-295 transport plane roaring past the skyline of Kangzhou. The belly of the plane opened, and several wooden crates with parachutes were dropped. Bright orange parachutes blossomed in the air, and supply boxes marked with the word AID wobbled as they floated toward the ground. This scene looks like humanitarian aid, but I know in my heart that it resembles a carefully orchestrated political performance. In this abandoned dead city, the appearance of supply boxes may not be hope, but more likely a new battle. So, I turn the zoom ring, the lens locks onto one of the supply boxes, which crashes heavily in the middle of the intersection 2 blocks away, unobstructed. The scorching sun of Kangzhou bakes the earth, and the air is bizarrely distorted by the high temperature. Dozens of ragged survivors rush out from every corner, shoving each other in the puddles, desperately scrambling for the supply box. But just then, a grey-white tide surged into the edge of the scene. Those zombies, who had long been hiding in the shadows, suddenly rushed out under the scorching sun. The intense ultraviolet rays caused their skin to emit greyish-blue smoke instantly, but their pain nerves had long been severed by the virus. They charged towards the living flesh with silent roars, undeterred by the burning. The black tide of corpses instantly engulfed the survivors, thick smoke obscuring all the bloodshed, leaving only countless twisted black silhouettes struggling under the orange parachutes. I control the drone to ascend. The lens sweeps over a nearby bus, which has become an island of death. Countless zombies, tireless and unfeeling, press upwards, the ones in front falling while those behind climb over the bodies. In just a few seconds, the silhouette of the last survivor on the bus disappears into the swarm of zombies, like a speck of dust falling into a mire. I expressionlessly push the throttle stick higher and the drone continues to ascend. Looking towards the end of Kangzhou, at that moment, I saw a scene of despair. The once clear highway exit was cut off by a multi-layered high wall of countless red, blue, and white shipping containers stacked in a crisscross pattern, with the white spray paint on the containers being striking. Quarantine zone, no entry. On the other side of the wall, armored vehicles and anti-aircraft guns were neatly lined up, coldly pointing at this dead city. That is the boundary of the civilized world, and also the cold muzzle of a gun. We have been completely abandoned. The drone's battery is about to run out. The camera sweeps over the Kangzhou Financial Center, where the massive glass curtain wall reflects the blue sky and white clouds like a mirror, but an unexpected shadow suddenly intrudes into the frame. It is not the reflection of a cloud. A humanoid creature is crawling along the glass, clinging to it. I immediately zoomed in to see its appearance clearly. An extremely mutated body, almost no fat, grayish-white cracked skin, tightly wrapped around bones, limbs stretched like a humanoid spider, neck snapping as it extended, head turning sharply, cold, greedy eyes seemingly piercing through the screen, precisely locking onto me, hiding on the 6th floor. Cold sweat instantly covered my back, and I instinctively looked at the sealed window and the rainwater pipe on the rooftop. For such a mutated creature, that pipe is as easy to traverse as flat ground. On the 30th day after the outbreak, I turned this studio into a prison filled with empty cans. The reflection in the mirror shows me with a scruffy beard and sunken eyes, looking not much better than the zombies outside. I haven't had a deep sleep in a long time because that mutated creature is still on the rooftop. It has been crouching in the shadow of the rooftop water tank for half a month, like a gargoyle on a medieval church. Occasionally it leaves, but it always treats this building as its nest, or perhaps it sees me as its captive reserve food. My nerves are constantly tense. The compound bow is right by my side, and the surveillance is watching the rooftop 24 hours a day. I know this mutated creature is a Damocles sword hanging over my head, ready to fall at any moment. Just as I was on guard against the mutated creature on the rooftop, a piercing metal cutting sound drilled through the floor, shattering the silence of the fortress. This wasn't the scratching of zombies, it was the noise of industrial civilization. I instantly switched to the 5th floor surveillance. In the dark hallway, sparks flew, and the sound of a lithium battery angle grinder cutting through steel pipes was deafening. Several fully armed figures were at work. These thugs finally tracked me down by scent. Judging by their gear, they are professional bandits who survived by stepping over corpses. The leader was holding a yellow and black lithium battery hydraulic cutter, its jaws biting into my steel pipe fence like a crocodile. With a boom, the steel pipe was easily cut, and my fence gate was forcibly broken open. Their target is my supplies, and more importantly, my life. After the thugs broke open the gate, they immediately used an angle grinder to cut my channel steel fire door. But this thickened steel door barely lost any pain. The leader of the thugs was furious, raising a fire axe and striking the door heavily, but it was still in vain. The door didn't budge. They tried picking the lock, ramming it, using every method. The leader completely lost patience, took off his helmet, revealing a face full of scars and knife marks. He pulled out several glass bottles from his backpack, filled with gasoline. Gasoline. They are not here to beg. They are here to slaughter. Steel doors can block cutting machines, but they cannot stop the scorching fire attack. The acrid smell of burning gasoline seeped in through the door crack. I was in a desperate situation. Above me were the mutants, below were the mobsters, and I was trapped in the middle. In front, the mutants lay in wait, and behind, the mobsters were attacking with fire. I didn't panic. Instead, a bold idea came to me. Why not do them a favor and connect them? I abandoned the compound bow at hand. Using arrows on this group of rats was too wasteful. I found a small black box, which was a high-decibel personal alarm with a strong magnet on the back that could firmly attach to any metal. I opened the acrylic panel of the observation hall, and the wind mixed with the smell of gasoline rushed in. After finding the right spot, I threw down the alarm. As it passed by the air conditioning unit on the 5th floor, the alarm firmly attached itself, and the 130 decibel sharp buzzing exploded above the heads of the mob. This sound not only startled the mob, but also enraged the mutated being on the rooftop. The noise was a blatant provocation to it. The all-black eyes in the rooftop shadows suddenly widened. Like a grey lightning bolt, it clung to the red bricks with its limbs hanging upside down and dove straight down. The mutated being dove down like a grey lightning bolt, its slender limbs locking onto the rioter, entangling and falling. The Molotov cocktail shattered midair, setting the rioter on fire. In the flames below, the mutated being remained unscathed. It frantically tore at the burning body, bones cracking, the dull sound reaching the 6th floor. This scene completely shattered the courage of the thugs. They abandoned their armor and fled in panic, preferring to face zombies over the mutated creature. Once finished, the mutated creature slowly approached. It crawled back along the red brick wall, its pitch-black eyes fixed intently, as if saying, "Thanks for the meal, what's next?" I got goosebumps all over. It remembered the window, and it remembered me. The 3 thugs who narrowly escaped stopped at the street corner in Kangzhou, staring intently at the building where I was. Although I couldn't see their faces clearly, I could clearly feel the relentless malice written all over them. But this is not the relief of surviving a disaster, but a forewarning of a vengeful spirit. And the mutated creature above still lurks on the rooftop, occasionally observing. I look at the room full of supplies, the 18-degree power matrix, the brand new compound bow, and suddenly feel incredibly ironic. These things that once filled me with a sense of security now seem like gilded bars, trapping me in this old, shabby 6th-floor apartment. In front, there are evolved mutants. Behind, armed thugs. This steel fortress I painstakingly built is no longer safe, becoming a magnet for all malice, and more like a sealed coffin. Staying here is a dead end. It's time to leave. On the 30th night after the outbreak, the air in Kangzhou was filled with the low pressure before a storm. I knew the thugs would return, but I didn't expect them to come back so quickly and with such vicious methods. With a loud boom, the entire building shook violently. The bomb was detonated, and flames shot up from the entrance of the building. The thugs poured gasoline into the hallway and threw a Molotov cocktail, sending flames straight to the top floor. The noise and light became the strongest signal to summon the zombies. The horde surged, high temperatures and thick smoke seeped through the door cracks. The steel door became too hot to touch, and the indoor temperature soared to 42 degrees. I knew I couldn't hold out this time. I grabbed the tactical escape bag, taking only gold bars, antibiotics, seeds that can restart civilization, and the slightly yellowed cactus on the windowsill. It's the only life in this dead building besides me. I twisted open the liquefied gas tank, damaged all the butane stove valves, quickly made a candle into a liquid-level time bomb, and then rushed to the rooftop. The steel cable on the rooftop is the only way out, but the mutant is crouching nearby, 8 meters away, a line between life and death. Just a second before it leapt, the candle downstairs ignited, a 3-meter-high pillar of fire erupted, and the blast wave hurled it into the abyss. I didn't hesitate, pushed off with my legs, took a leap of faith, grabbed the steel cable, and hung 20 meters in the air, with tens of thousands of zombies below me. Behind me, my Noah's Ark was burning and collapsing, supplies falling into the sea of corpses. I successfully entered the pre-prepared garage, started the modified diesel off-road vehicle, broke through the roller shutter door, and rushed into the battlefield before dawn. The tires crushed broken glass and bones as I headed towards the isolation wall of Kangzhou. I turned off the headlights and slipped into the dry drainage ditch, avoiding the sweep of the searchlights. As the first ray of sunlight pierced the clouds, the sea breeze filled the car window, carrying not the stench of decay, but the salty taste of freedom. The cactus on the passenger seat was covered in dust, yet still stood tall. The radio crackled with intermittent voices. Survivor Alliance, coordinates 104. I gripped the steering wheel, a light rekindled in my eyes. I am Chen Mo. In the ruined Kangzhou, I didn't save anyone. I just tried my best not to become one of them. Survival is never the result, it's the process. As long as you're alive, anywhere is a new beginning. Baby, hold on tight. Our journey is just beginning.